our spring executive committee meetings. We had the leaders of our 37 unions. And really, for us, we take these as an opportunity to set our policy agenda for the next 6 months to a year. And there is a lot to get done. But we also always have guests and make sure that we provide, they can hear directly from our unions about what their top concerns, what their top priorities are, and how we can work together moving forward.
So you're kind of indicating it was a productive meeting. Would you go as far as saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was. I thought it was a really healthy discussion with both of our guests. And, one of the things that I always appreciate about when we're able to get everyone together like that is you realize that even if it's, that we have so many shared interests and shared fights, even if they may be in different arenas. So, letter carriers and the flight attendants and the transit workers all share some of the same priorities, and we realize there's ways that you sort of, as you have these conversations, realize there's ways we can all work together that we hadn't thought of yet.
The situation in East Palestine, Ohio, it seems like it was a wake-up call. In fact, we're finding every week there seems to be another train derailment. I'm just wondering, were these not reported before? But obviously there's a lot of issues, and I saw a story on your website about the length of trains, and apparently they're longer than what they should be. Can you just give us a little more on that? This sounds kind of scary to me.
Yeah, they've gotten much longer. I mean, they're upwards of 3-4 miles long now, which it has a couple of problems. One, it can increase safety risk because you have longer trains, more cars, there's more potential points of failure. It also makes it harder for the engineer and the conductor to deal with an issue if there is a problem with their train. And then the other issue is that we don't have a lot of our railroads don't have sidings long enough to accommodate these long trains. So if they break down, it can just clog up the entire system, or you end up with blocked crossings so that people can't. It just shuts down whole communities. You can't get to school. We've had emergency vehicles not be able to get to a fire or a person who is in need of medical attention because these trains are blocking crossings. So, yeah, it's a really big problem, and it's one of the reasons why the railroads like to be able to claim that there are fewer derailments now than there are 10 years ago. And frankly, while the numbers may be slightly down, the rates of accidents are up. Their rates are higher, and because they're running fewer, longer trains, they like to claim that somehow has made it safer, when in reality, the opposite is true.
So where's the law when it comes to the length of trains? Is there anything on the books here that kind of regulates that right now? No, there's no law on it. And so we've, during some of the previous legislation, there was language that required the Government Accountability Office to do a study on train lengths. And we're going to have to, figure out if in this rail safety bill, whether there's a way we can try to, start setting a maximum length of these trains, because it's getting out of control. So the rail safety bill, which does have bipartisan support, does not have any wordage in there dealing with the length of the trains right now. Is that right?
I'd have to go back and look at it again. I don't think so, but there are going to be other opportunities to try to address this issue.
This is crazy. Yeah. The old line, runaway freight train. I mean, this is what we're looking at right now. I mean, miles and miles of length for these trains. That's ridiculous. Wow. So where are we with the rail safety bill? Is that starting to gain some momentum or what?
Yeah, look, let's see, man. A week and a half ago, the Senate Commerce Committee reported that bill, marked it up, and reported it out of their committee. So that's the first step for this thing, hopefully getting passed. But next step is we need to get 60 votes in the Senate, and that they have to be able to schedule floor time. And once that's done, it'll be the House's turn. So we got a long way to go, but I'm hopeful that there's enough momentum here to try and really do something meaningful.
That would be good. In the meantime, we got to make sure that the workers are taken care of. And from what I understand, apparently their benefits, they're seeing a reduction in benefits. It should be the other way around. They should increase their benefits. But I guess this has to do with the fact that we went through the pandemic and there was some legislation that Congress passed because of the national emergency, and that time period has run out. Can you I'd like to get your point of view on what happened here and what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so railroad workers, railroad workers pay into the Railroad Retirement Board for a couple of different benefits. So their retirement goes to the Railroad Retirement Board. Their unemployment benefits, their short-term sickness and unemployment benefits all get managed by this separate federal board called the Railroad Retirement Board. If you recall back in the big budget fight in 2011 when the Democrats, Republicans, are actually similar to what we're dealing with right now, they did this whole thing where sequestration would be imposed if they didn't get a budget deal between the two. And it was supposed to be cuts that were so bad that Congress would never allow it to happen because it was just unthinkable. Well, they allowed it to happen. And, eventually we solved it and we brought sequestration. It ended for most places, almost everywhere. It didn't end for the Railroad Retirement Board on unemployment and sickness benefits. So they still were subjected to these lower, suppressed levels of spending, which, we continue to think was completely unfair because these are not, paid for by taxpayer dollars. This is paid for by employers and railroad workers. And it's completely off budget and completely not subject to any federal subsidy. So when the pandemic hit, one of the things that happened in the relief packages is we temporarily lifted those sequestration cuts from unemployment and sickness benefits for rail workers. But that temporary relief was only in place while there was a national health emergency. And now that the national health emergency is over, those cuts go back into place. So we've been calling on Congress to permanently fix this problem because it's just ridiculous that these workers continue to be subject to cuts that are arbitrary and that are not hitting other parts of the government anymore.
Yeah, workers are hurting, and they're going to hurt more as a result of this. We're talking 5.7% reduction in their benefits, and this goes through 2031. This is a long time for that cut.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, one more here. Last time you and I talked, you just kicked off your campaign about stock buybacks, and we're talking some major rail companies that did really, really well financially. I mean, they spent like $165 billion in buying back their stock, which apparently was a big jump. And at the same time, safety is being cut. How's that campaign going right now, Greg?
Good. It's going really well. I mean, we have a lot of people who have signed our petition on the website there. We have gotten a lot of good media coverage about this. I think, I testified in front of the House T&I committee last week or 2 weeks ago, and members of Congress were talking about this. To Ian Jeffries of the Railroad Association. So, I think people are paying attention. When you see those numbers side by side in terms of what they spent on, track upgrades versus what they spent on stock buybacks, and the stock buybacks just dwarf all of their, investment into what they should be investing in.
Right.
I think it raises some eyebrows, and hopefully, similar to the attention everyone got on sick leave, that the fact that rail workers don't have sick leave, and now the railroads, one by one, have been going back and reaching agreements with the unions to provide sick leave. We got, over half of the workers now have a sick leave agreement. Similar to that, maybe this sort of public scrutiny and public attention will force them to change their behavior moving forward.
Yeah, public shaming. It does work. There's no doubt about it. Again, $165 billion in stock buybacks, which is at least $46 billion more than they invested in safety. That is so wrong, so wrong. Those of you listening right now, go to the website nostockbuybacks.org and sign on to that petition, nostockbuybacks.org. Well, Greg, you take care. Thank you so much for joining us.